morning. Welcome to Unity of Springfield's History of World Religions and New Thought Christianity. My name is John Brocker, and I really do miss all of you. Hopefully, by the time that you see this, I may have seen you and talked to you at Saturday evening with the Unity Springfield Band Concert in the grass, and really looking forward to that. Today, I'll be talking about the 5 levels of attachment. It's a book by Miguel Ruiz Jr. And we'll begin by getting centered as I read an excerpt from the book about love and letting go of attachment. So just get comfortable, breathing easily and evenly. I guided her wheelchair up to the big mirror in the hallway. Grandma, look at yourself in the mirror. You are beautiful. You are wonderful. You are the most passionate, smartest, and toughest person I have ever known. Imagine everything you hold to be truth. Your family, your children, your Bible, your rosary, your incense, your candles. You have faith in all these things, and this faith allows you to perform miracles for others. You may have said that it was God who healed people, and while this is still truth, it is also truth that your faith allowed you to do it. Your faith is so strong that everything you believe in comes alive with every breath you take. It is your attachment to this physical form to which you give life that keeps you from wanting to let go. Look into this mirror, Grandma, and imagine these things all around you that you hold dear. Your faith is so strong that you put Sarita in each and every one of them. In the same way you have given life to your thoughts, your beliefs, and your ideals, these things are alive because of you. It is time to take your energy back from these things and release your attachments to them. Let go of the fear of what you are without them and what they are without you. When you take back your power from these things, you will no longer identify yourself by them. Then there will only be you. You and your image of Sarita, your body. When you are ready to let go of this final attachment, you will pass away in peace. Madre Sarita kissed me then and nodded. She passed away about a month and a half later. She lived to be 98 years old, and she had always been helping others. My love and gratitude for her are always going to be with me. So, as we address this whole idea of attachments and the different levels of attachments and what they mean, it's important to remember that the true self is perfect. And that's not just easy. Miguel Jr. tells a story of conversation with his father. His father said, "Miguel, when you understand that you are perfect, just the way you are, you will see that everything is perfect, just the way it is." And he goes on, and Miguel Jr. writes, "It's not easy to wake up one day and say you're perfect and actually believe it. It requires desire and commitment. First, you leave behind any false ideals of perfection. You release your attachment to what you believe it means to be the perfect you. In order to learn this lesson, I needed to stop judging myself for not meeting my own expectations and accept myself for who I am at this very moment. I began at the beginning learning to love myself and giving gratitude every morning for being alive. Second, you view life through the eyes of an artist and accepting that everything is a work of progress, a never-ending masterpiece. As my father says, our life is a canvas, and we are all Picassos. Another concept that the Ruiz family talks about is our personal dream and the dreams of the planets, or the planet, the global dream in our reality that includes everybody else that we're aware of on Earth. So, a dream of the planet is constructed by our collective choices. So it's the manifestation of our shared intentions for everybody here on Earth. And we're all connected because we have a desire to engage one another. So we're now sharing a piece of a common dream, the dream of the planet, for better or for worse. So you see, the dream of the planet is constructed by that need to share and communicate with one another. We either engage each other in a relationship based on respect, or we impose and subjugate each other disrespectfully with a need to make each other fit the mold of our beliefs and our ideal. And on a smaller scale, when there's just two individuals, whoever controls the yes controls the relationship. This is why people often try to impose their beliefs on one another, or conversely, why they may subjugate their will to another person's point of view. Harmony exists when we engage each other with respect, honoring each other's yeses and nos as we construct the dream of us. Both the personal dream and the dream of the planet are built on knowledge, and that's the tool by which we are able to survive in the world. But as we will see, it's also our attachment to knowledge that when it increases, it narrows our ability to perceive how life truly is, thus narrowing our potential. So knowledge has ever-changing meanings. And Don Miguel Ruiz Sr. quote, "I am only responsible for what I say. I am not responsible for what you hear." So a symbol's meaning, which is how we communicate knowledge through language and such, is derived by an agreement by a community, a culture, a nation, and so on. And that when a definition is created by consensus, and when enough of us say yes to that representation, we call this knowledge. For example, this book, we call it a book, and there's very little at stake in agreeing that a bound of collection of papers with its words are on a book. However, there are symbols for ideas and concepts that we all manage differently. And we all have our own perceptions and points of view. And in fact, because of the nature of them, we may not really ever know what another person's true experience is with those. For example, love, spirit, morality. And although they're defined by an agreement, but they're never truly understood except by our own experience. Another example of both of knowledge and how shared knowledge or agreement to this knowledge can change and have practical impact on us. He tells a story in the book that back in the 1600s, there was a period of time called the Dutch Golden Age where tulips were worth more than gold. There had been a virus in the, first, tulips had become very popular. And they were brought to Vienna from the Ottoman Empire, and the price of them had gone up just because they were very, very popular. Just regular supply and demand. And then there was a virus that came and killed many of them, and so that made them even more rare, which then made them more expensive. And then when the impact of the virus changed, they went back to just being tulips again. But at the time, fortunes were made and lost, and just because of a change of agreement and a change of agreeing about the value of whatever. And so we want to remember that knowledge isn't the same as ineffable truth. He gives a definition. Well, no. You are perfect because you are alive in this present moment, transforming continuously with life. If we can see ourselves as perfect just the way we are because we are alive at this moment, we are free. Our attachments no longer define us. Instead, the knowledge we gather becomes a tool that can help us decide how we want to engage in dreams, both the personal and the collective dreams. And how to choose to act is the manifestation of our intention. So our choice of action based on the information and utilizing the knowledge or the way that both the collective consciousness views this information and how you view that. Next, we're going to go through briefly the 5 levels of the attachments to kind of give an overview. So the first one is called the authentic self. And Ruiz Jr. uses soccer as a way of kind of describing in giving metaphor to the levels and to give some examples. So, at level 1 in the authentic self, you simply enjoy the game of soccer, watching it for what it is. The players could even be kicking around a tin can, and you would still enjoy the ups and downs of the sport. The moment the referee blows the whistle at the end of the game, win or lose, you leave the game behind. You walk out of the stadium and continue on with your life. You invested just enough of yourself to choose to attend or watch the game, so that you're in total control of the knowledge. You experience the purest form of joy stemming from your pure desire to just experience life without conditions. Okay. Level 2 is preference. So in the preference level, again, you can be in any stadium, but now you root for one of the teams. So you decide which team to root for. It might be the home team. It might be because of the color of their uniforms or the names of the cool names of the players. But either way, you go ahead and you root for a team, and there's a story of victory and defeat that shaped that experience. But that story really has nothing to do with you. You don't take it personally. And so, at the end of the event, or the game, you simply say, well, that was fun, and you let go of the attachment. And you just enjoyed the ups and downs of the game. So life is happening, and you are able to share it with those around you, regardless of how they see themselves. Level 3 is identity. This time, you're a committed fan of a particular team. So this is your favorite team. Your team's performance is not a condition of your own self-acceptance. And if your team loses, you're able to accept defeat as you congratulate the other side. However, it has become a part of your identity, and so if they win, you feel a little bit better, a little extra spring in your step. If your team loses, you might have not such a great day the next day at work, and you might have an argument or something with somebody about somebody's responsibility for losing the game. And you've let the attachment change your persona. Your attachment bleeds into a world that really has nothing to do with it. So it's moving into who you are, even though the game itself is not you. Level 4 is internalization. So staying with the sports analogy, the story of victory and defeat now is about you. And if you're reading stats, you start thinking, wow, they're making us look bad. And you identify yourself with the team, with the sport. And you start to believe that people who don't agree with you are wrong. Like whether or not they should have signed that star player or not for our team, or traded them to another team. And then the other piece is you really become less aware that of the fact of attachment. And you might also make the loyalty towards your attachment a condition for relationship with other people. Like, I'm only hanging around with Chiefs fans now, you know. Not totally, but that comes into it now. It becomes one of the things that you're looking at. And so it's become a condition also of self-acceptance. So that it becomes difficult to see yourself not as that fan. Okay. And would you have self-respect if you were no longer the fan of your team anymore? Level 5 is fanaticism. At this time, your blood bleeds your team colors. And what happens on the field says everything about you. Winning championships makes you a better person. And there's always a conspiracy theory that never allows you to accept a loss as just that the other team was a better team on that day and that it was legitimate. So you get into, the referees did this and that and the other, so on and so forth. Or they were cheating. And relationships start to mean nothing if it's not in relationship or if they're not also believers in your team. And it's also at this point in time where you try to convince others that they really need to believe in the same attachment that you have. And that if they don't, you kind of pat them on the head, say they just don't know any better. Okay. Now, Ruiz believes that, at least through his experience, that most people are in the levels, and most of the time are in the third and fourth levels of attachment. Those of identity and of internalization. And that we go back and forth between those most of the time. But that we all, during a period of meditation, we might be in our authentic self. And, or through a profound experience of intimacy with people, or a group, or a universe. And so that it's a fluid thing. It's very difficult for people to stay in the authentic self all of the time. And much of our interactions in the world are through moving through these different levels of attachment and through being aware of others and interacting with others based on the agreements of these different attachments. So having that knowledge and that awareness is very important just in functioning day to day. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the levels. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage going back and forth through the levels. So again, here's a quote that's common in this book. Is knowledge controlling you, or are you controlling knowledge? I am a living being regardless of my knowledge, which exists only because I exist. Because knowledge is very personal. An engagement is the action of interacting with the focal point of our attention. As we engage life, we naturally go up and down the levels of our attachments, like a flower continuously opening and closing. Some days, or sometimes, we let go of our awareness as we increase our attachment to a focal point. Other times, we remember our authenticity as we let go of the attachment. But regardless of our degree of attachment, we are always our authentic self. We simply forget that we are. It's when we're moving up and down the different levels of attachment, particularly at the third, fourth, fifth levels. We're all the personification of life, and we're all the authentic self. We simply make the choice to see it in ourselves or others or not. And another way I look at authentic self too is that it's the expression of unconditional love, both to ourselves and to others around us. Also, when we're at this level of attachment, we have the freedom to choose how we want to engage the dream of the planet. The awareness that we are living, the living being that gives life to our beliefs and our knowledge, that lets us choose with complete freedom that we want to place our intent and create for as long as we choose to engage. And it's in this state of harmony we have the potential to love unconditionally because we have no conditions for self-acceptance, just as a willingness to engage love with a self-respect and respect for others. If someone were to say or do something insulting that we are when we're residing in level 1, the authentic self, it simply doesn't bother us. The words and actions it's like water off a duck's back. So we have the freedom to engage life as life evolves and engage people that we love without the need to domesticate them to our point of view. Because it really is perfect just as it is. Preference is level 2. So at the second level of attachment, I use knowledge as the tool by which I engage my preference in life. So at this point, the awareness is still very high. At level 2, we have the awareness that knowledge is a tool that provides us with the information we need to make the choices about where we wish to place our attention and then take action. But we don't distort the information we perceive. We're using it to engage only in this moment. We can choose to adapt in accordance with the present life situation without losing the awareness of our authentic self, without the need to project a false image of self. Our awareness allows us to see the temptation to become attached to that projected mask, but we maintain clarity. At this level of attachment, we don't forget we're playing a game, which makes it easier for us to detach when the game is over. From the Toltec standpoint, that awareness at that level, where our relationship with knowledge allows us to engage life as it is, we are able to make choices with our reason as we perceive the difference between truth and distortion. And the knowledge is a clean and perfect reflection of life. From the Toltec standpoint, this is a clean mirror. So we see every situation unclouded by smoke. So from what I gather and from reading this book, the Ruizes are encouraging us to spend more time in level 1 and 2, just for our own joy and effectiveness. So, another example, besides soccer, is diet choice. So we're going to use the example of a vegan. So at this stage, think about an individual who chooses to eat healthfully, and through their choice or through their research, they decided that a vegan diet was a good thing to do. And that's a diet that includes no animal products. And she uses this knowledge to inform choices when she eats. But she does not use the knowledge to identify herself as vegan. Nor does she use the knowledge to domesticate herself or others by it. So if she chooses to have an ice cream, she can do that without self-judgment and then re-engage in the vegan diet afterwards, just if she so chooses. And so she uses that knowledge to engage her preference with regard to her nutrition without ever losing her awareness of herself. And you could use many other lifestyle choices as other examples. Level 3 is identity. I identify myself with my knowledge, although I use it to see and understand the world. So I identify myself with my knowledge, although I use it to see and understand the world. So I start to identify a little bit more with what I call myself, what I do. And this is where we start to believe that the reflection in the mirror is maybe the reflection of the truth. The main condition for acceptance in the dream of the planet is that our identity is recognized in the world of 7 billion souls. So although we do not domesticate ourselves, forming this identity, because that occurs at that internalization, the next fourth level, by adopting it, we are hoping to be understood by our community, and thus by ourselves. So we're wanting to be heard by the dream of the planet, and our voice takes on an identity to express itself, or so we would like to think. So when speaking mind to mind, knowledge recognizes knowledge. So we become attached to the mask of our identity. In this level, we forget that the mask of the identity is an empty symbol, just like a word whose definition is subject to an agreement by us and the use of the knowledge of the dream of the planet. And just as language changes over time, so can our identity mask. So as we increase our attachment to our identity, knowledge and consensus become more important to us. So what other people say, think, and the world view becomes more important. Identity can be based on things like the color of our skin, nationality or our family, the religion we practice, the political party that best reflects our beliefs, the sports team that allows us the excitement of winning and losing, and the work we engage in every day, the activities that we love to participate in. Our name and identity give us purpose and a sense of belonging. The hallmarks of level 3 are that we've donned the mask of identity and forgotten it's a mask. The beginning of the forgetting of who we really are, the authentic self. And that leads to suffering, generally not in an inordinate amount. So let's go back to the example of the vegan woman. So at this level, she calls herself a vegan. The symbol of her preference even when she's not engaging in a meal. So her identity as a vegan gives her a purpose and place in her community. And when she makes choices, her identity is often reflected, or it is reflected. If she wants to have ice cream, she may feel disappointed in her choice, but after a short time, she'll forgive herself and move on. She does not place unreasonable conditions on herself for self-acceptance based on her identity, nor do her friends and family need to be a vegan in order to be a part of her life. She still has respect for others' manifestations in their personal dreams, just as she has respect for her own manifestation. Level 4 is internalization. And this degrees my identity in the form of my knowledge gives me the rules and guidelines by which I live my life. My identity in the form of my knowledge gives me the rules and guidelines by which I live my life. The fourth level of attachment, internalization, describes the level where identity becomes the model by which we accept ourselves. This is domestication through attachment. So we domesticate our identity. If we don't follow through with how we see ourselves being, if we're not following our beliefs about who we are, and we feel pretty bad about it. Because the narrators, which is the peanut gallery, the internal dialogue, what have you, are sharing that information of conditions and giving you the feedback about the conditions of not following with the rules of engagement. It's also, we no longer have a clean reflection in the mirror, and it's now a smoky mirror. So because we're viewing everything through this level of attachment, of internalization, it makes it more difficult to see what truly is, what other people are actually thinking and doing, and who we are. And our focus is on that idealized version of our identity. This is a direct result of our domestication through conditional love. So people have said yes and no to us over a period of time. And based on who we want to be accepted by, have chosen an identity and internalize that identity so that we can feel good about ourselves. Although these conditions for acceptance and rejection may not be as rigid as the next level of attachment, they are learned and ingrained through constant interaction we have with others. And we use these conditions as guideposts for accepting and rejecting other people as well as ourselves. The attachment is to the mechanism of acceptance and rejection itself, which corrupts knowledge to fit our sense of self and influences how we relate to life. At this point, we've lost our respect for self and others, and conditional love is all we know. Well, to get back to our vegan friend, she now says the person who calls herself a vegan, she now uses her identity as a catalyst for conditional love. In order to be worthy of her own love, she must be strict vegan and not stray, lest she feel the wrath of her self-judgment. She surrounds herself with other vegans who will confirm her worthiness of being a vegan by accepting and judging themselves and others. She limits the people in her life who are not vegan and will try to domesticate the people she loves to change their diet, feeling pity for them for not being awake to her point of view. Thus, she is in constant conflict with points of view that do not side with her own. She's still eating a healthy diet, but she is imposing on herself and others the knowledge that goes along with her preference in life. And Ruiz says only unhappiness stems from the judge and victim mentality. To live up to the conditions and be accepted, we hide who we really are, not only from others, but also from ourselves. We become completely confused, believing that the mask we have created is who we really are. Level 5 is fanaticism. My knowledge controls my every action. Fanaticism describes the rigid attachment to knowledge with an excessive intolerance of opposing views. It is driven by a need to believe in something 100%, even though that something's meaning is dependent upon the agreement of others. Anything that contradicts or puts into question the sustainability of that belief is a direct threat. And a fanatic will defend the belief at any cost. Prejudice, intolerance, and violence are the instruments by which the belief is imposed onto the dream of the planet. Regardless of how it can appear, the driving force behind fanaticism is not hate or anger, but rather an extreme form of conditional love, both for ourselves and for others. This is how any beautiful belief in the world can be lost in corruption, as knowledge controls a person's will for the sake of its own existence. Attachment at this degree requires us to try and domesticate everyone around us. And we become tyrants. In the Toltec tradition, the smoke does not let us even see that there's a mirror. The smoke is all we see. So let's go back to our vegan friend again, who is now a mother. And she domesticates her son to fall right in line with her in the family tradition of being a vegan. And in that effort, she's convinced that she is only correct. The identity she has adopted for herself is just what it is. Imagine a dinner at this family's home. The young mother is making a meal in the kitchen while the husband and the son are sitting in the dining room. And the mom says, well, what would you like to eat? And the boy says, carne asada, which is meat. He said, we don't eat carne asada in this house, says mom. And the son pleads with the father, and the father goes, well, really, we're a vegan family. I've been convinced. I'm not going to rock this boat. And the boy, and then the mom says to the boy, she says, we are vegans. And the boy says, no, I'm not a vegan. You're a vegan. I'm not a vegan. And then because of the level of attachment to this by the mom as being a fanaticist, then for her, she goes, well, then you're just going to have to find a new place to live. Because that's the way it is. We have examples of honor killings as well throughout in the world. And other examples, especially, we see them on the news, the extreme examples, driving through a crowd of people who are peacefully demonstrating, things like that, where they feel they're so threatened by the other point of view that it's untenable. It is true that it's each individual's personal choice to be in whatever level of attachment they are in. And yet we can also try to be a catalyst for change, and just do the best that we can. And when a person then has some awareness, I look at the motivational interviewing about non-contemplation, that when a person's in non-contemplation to change, it's very, very, very difficult. But we can look for cracks of where they are considering, well, maybe there is different ways, and then just having that awareness, we can sometimes help others. Ruiz Sr. talked to his son, and he says, the biggest demon in the world is love. And of course, he was talking about conditional love, and it really kind of freaked out Ruiz Jr. till he figured it out. And really, the bottom line of how that impacts us, this conditional love, is through the narrators or the internal dialogue that's within ourselves that enforces the rules through self-deprecating thoughts and self-judgments and judgments of others that continue to become harmful or potentially harmful. We have always been loved, but we have grown so accustomed to the smoky, distorted reflection of love that doesn't allow us to see or accept ourselves that we don't know how to live life without it, which is the biggest lie. But when we become aware of our attachment and decide to let go of the distortion, then the motivation to change comes from our own love. And it gives us a whole new perspective on life. The genuine motivation is the subject of the next section. And that's the process of moving through the attachments. So again, majority of people tend to be in levels 3 and 4, identity and internalization. And they see themselves as a reflection of their beliefs and their thoughts and their behavior. So we're going to start with moving from level 5 to level 4. So we're going from fanaticism to internalization. And love and respect for self and others is the beginning of letting go of fanaticism. We cannot give what we do not have. So respect for life starts with our own. And love is the grounding source of this respect. Seeing that our life is worth something allows us to see that the life of another person is just as special. But to let go of the most extreme form of conditional love requires an ability to question the agreements that are tied to it. A consequence of this attachment to knowledge is at the level of fanaticism is that we impose self-judgment on ourselves for even thinking that there might be another form of questioning. So questioning is the key. Starting to question, starting in motivational interviewing, we call it contemplation, starting to contemplate that maybe change might be something that might be a good idea. Moving from level 4 to level 3 is when we recognize our attachment to the mechanism of conditional love. Acceptance and rejection itself is, according to the Toltec tradition, the catalyst for distortion or corruption of knowledge. So when we let go of that internal struggle between the truth and lies, then we cross over to level 3, identity. In our tradition, this rebellion represents the birth of a Toltec warrior when we realize that the mechanism has a hold of us. We make a choice not to believe in it, beginning an internal war of our own for our own personal freedom. So the 4 agreements, the 5 agreements, being impeccable with your word, not taking anything personally, don't make assumptions, always do your best, be skeptical and learn to listen, which are beautiful. They're on my refrigerator to help me remember them on a daily basis. But those are skills and practices that we can have that help us to remember and to notice that we are not that internalization, that internalized level of beliefs and of attachment. We are living love at this moment, becoming aware of our actions, taking responsibilities for our own will, and repenting if need be, allow us to forgive ourselves and others for our actions and theirs. And that helps us let go of domestication. And that's the real key with the 5 agreements and this being aware of the levels. If we can go from 4 to 3, we let go of domestication. We let go of of having our internal dialogue. What we're saying to ourselves is as being the control. Moving from level 3 to level 2, during level 3, having that mask on that you don't realize you have, and you don't realize you can remove it. That moment that you understand that the image of the mask is not really you, then you regain the awareness of your true self. And that's a person who's completely free to take any direction in life. So when you have that ability, that's that moving from 3 to 2. I can let go of that mask. I don't have to be that person. Letting go of the attachment of identity is recognizing that there's a clear separation or line between the authentic self and the knowledge. And that line is your choice, your yes or your no. It's your intention. So practicing intention helps us to keep that sense of line between the level of attachment and identity versus that of preference. So the hallmarks of the level of attachment of preference is that you love yourself unconditionally in this very present moment. And you play in the dream of the planet knowing that your yes and no give life to your art. And you understand that the truth exists regardless of whether or not you believe in it. While a belief only exists for as long as you believe in it, or only as long as that you're thinking it. Moving from level 2 to level 1 is simply the act of disengaging from our preferences at the moment passes. So being at that level 1 is a transient experience. Because as soon as we come up and start manifesting, and we're not in level 1, we're moving on. So it's about time to close. So let us remember that in our authentic self, unconditional love, We are all connected. We are individuals and a part of the everything. Let us hope and desire for the freedom of awareness that gives us the choice to let go of any attachment in that current moment in order to become that unconditional love that the world and we as individuals are meant to be. Namaste.